Hello, my 10th grade patrons. Welcome to Mrs. Snider's Library Workshop. Today, we'll be diving into the topic of copyright. We will discuss the basics of what copyright is, who has ownership over copyrights, what happens when copyrights are infringed upon, and how to avoid going to court for using someone else's work. So let's get started, shall we? What is copyright? Smaldino explains that copyrights are regulations that describe the manner in which an original work can be used and copied. Copyright laws regulate the manner in which authors or artists can be reimbursed for their creative work. In other words, when someone creates or writes something, that work automatically becomes that person's property. The owner can then choose to reproduce or share the work as they choose for public consumption. Copyright law. Under copyright laws, original works are protected. A person or group is able to claim ownership of original works and decide how it can be used. For example, when someone's making a movie, they can't just use someone else's footage or musical compositions without the copyright owner's permission, and possibly some form of contract with them. Copyright laws also protect original works from being changed in any way that destructs the integrity of the work. Again, this is going back to the owner having the say on who can use the work, how it can be used, and even where it can be used. The owner is able to protect their work and even their reputation as a creator. Interesting thing about copyright law is that ideas and concepts are not covered under copyright law, but rather just original creations and fixed works are covered. So, just because you had the idea first, it doesn't mean that you own the sole rights to it. Who can own a copyright? Anyone who has created or written something original can be a copyright owner. Yes, even you. Copyright owners can be individuals who have created works solely on their own or people working jointly. Companies and organizations can own copyrights as well. In this case, the work would be considered works made for hire. This would mean that although an employee of the company or organization may have created the work, they were contracted or commissioned to do that work, so they would not be the copyright owners. The company or organization would be. However, it is possible that this can vary based on the situation. Ownership of a copyright can also change over time, depending on if a company has been sold or an individual transferred their rights in a will. Copyright registration. Once something is created, written, or captured, also known as a work being fixed, it's automatically copyrighted. Since this is the case, registering a copyright is not necessary. However, copyright registration does provide extra protection for your work. When you register a copyright, your work is put into a database others can search and be alerted of the copyrighted work. This may not be something you find yourself doing in the near future, but it may interest you more if you're wanting to become a professional artist or having lots of money being invested into a project. What types of work can be copyrighted? Paintings, photographs, illustrations, musical compositions, sound recordings, computer programs, books, poems, blog posts, movies, architectural works, plays, and more. All of these types of works can be copyrighted as long as they're original works and fixed. Remember, it's okay to be influenced by someone else's work, but the goal is to create your own work to respect the hard work and creativity of someone else. This is why it's important to do your research before beginning any project. How long does a copyright last? The duration of a copyright ultimately depends on two main factors: when the work was created and who created the work. Anything created before 1978 will have its own duration of copyright depending on the type of work. If an individual person has created a work after January 1st, 1978, the copyright will last the lifetime of the author or creator, plus an additional 70 years after that. Similarly, if a work is created jointly by two or more people after January 1st, 1978, the copyright lasts the lifetime of the longest living author or creator, plus an additional 70 years. Any works created in a work-for-hire situation, or the work was created anonymously or under a pseudonym after January 1st, 1978, the copyright will last for 95 to 120 years from the publication or creation date, whichever is sooner. Copyright infringement. This means to use someone else's copyrighted work without permission. This may also look like using another author's words, using a recording artist's song on your YouTube video, or using an example of someone else's work on your social media page to advertise for your own business. Typically, when copyright infringement occurs, the copyright owner does not receive the compensation or credit they would otherwise receive. You may have noticed that before you watch a movie, you're warned of not recording the film or using it for purposes other than personal entertainment. This is because if people made copies of the film or charged people for private viewings, the creators of the work and the movie theaters, who have paid for sharing rights, would lose money. Liability. So what happens if copyright infringement occurs? Sometimes nothing happens at all, but that's not always the case. Let's imagine a minor situation copyright infringement could occur. Say you're at a concert with your friends and decide to capture a video of you and your buddies jamming out with the concert music playing in the video. After the concert, you upload the video to Instagram. Since you don't own the copyrights to the music in the video, your video is flagged and removed from the site for copyright infringement. If the infringement was more serious, say you were to record the concert and sell the videos, it's possible you could be served by the court. Any copied works could be impounded by the court. You could then be charged court fees and be ordered to pay the copyright owner any amount of potential lost income. Depending on the situation, other fines and fees may be required. How can infringement be avoided? If someone else owns the copyright to work you want to use in portion or reproduce, you can begin by asking the owner for permission to use their work. It's possible the owner will grant you permission if you provide credit to them somewhere in your work. It's also possible they'll say yes, but only if you pay a royalty for the use of their work. This means they're able to make up some of the potential lost income. Whenever you're creating a presentation or writing for an assignment, it's important to cite your sources and give a thank you to the owner. You can also make appropriate and legal purchases of materials. So say you started a book club, but only have one copy of the book. It's not okay to copy the pages of the book at home. The same could be said for downloading music. By using works from the public domain or open licensing groups, you can for the most part avoid infringement. It's possible the copyright infringement will be covered by fair use, which we'll talk about more. However, the best way is to create your own original work. Public domain. As mentioned on the previous slide, copyright infringement can be avoided by utilizing work and resources through the public domain. You may think that the entire internet is open to the public, so anything on there goes, but that's not the case. However, you can find works from the public domain through a simple internet search. Copyright laws do not apply to works in the public domain. Here are some of the reasons something may be part of the public domain. The copyright has expired. This would mean that enough time has passed since the work was created that the person to be compensated or credited is no longer living. This does not mean the work is no longer of value, though. It's possible the copyright was never registered, so it's either free to use from the creator or no one can be credited. Lastly, anything issued by the federal government is included under public domain. Creative Commons. I previously mentioned utilizing open license resources as another way to avoid copyright infringement. Creative Commons is an organization that's created a place for open license materials for people to use. Through Creative Commons, creators are able to have their intellectual property protected while still allowing their materials to be used by other creators. A Creative Commons open source license still allows a person to choose the specifics of their rights for the work, but ultimately, the work is to share with others. This sharing and collaboration aspect of this organization are what make it popular amongst creators and artists. Fair use. Fair use has yet to be clearly defined, so it's a bit of a gray area when it comes to copyright law. This makes the clause somewhat subjective and really a case-by-case situation. According to the Fair Use Clause, a person can use portions of someone else's work as long as they're not using the whole or majority. This can all be done without permission of the copyright owner. For example, you could use a quote from an author's book in your essay, as long as you're not quoting the book in its entirety and you're giving credit to the author. Or perhaps there's a scene from a movie you would like to use to drive a point home in your video. You may be able to use a small clip and give the copyright owner credit. These are the reasons copyright work can be used without infringement: criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. The following things are used to determine if fair use of the work is valid. Value of the work used. Was only a 5-second clip of the movie used, or a full hour of it? The monetary value of each varies greatly. The type of work used. The amount of work used. Was the entire book copied, or just one page to share? Lastly, the purpose of use. Did the person intend to use the work commercially to gain something from it, or was it being used for educational purposes? For example, a movie being shown in class to compare and contrast film and literature. So by this point, you may be asking yourself, why does any of this matter, and how does it affect me? In this digital age we're living in, it's easy to think that anything on the internet is free for anyone to use. Just because we have quick access to all kinds of things, it doesn't mean there's not someone sitting behind that work who owns it. By following copyright law, we can help protect the hard work of other people. We can also make sure they're getting the credit and payments they deserve. This is what keeps artists going and helps them to continue to create the things that they do. Copyright laws also help to protect your hard work. Even if it's hard to think of another person behind an image you want to use in your slideshow, think of how it would feel if it was your work. You may feel like you're being stolen from. Copyright laws can also help to promote more original ideas and creations. People are less likely to take the work of others and claim it as their own. It's easier for new things to be created when people are aware of what's already been done. It may seem like copyright stifles the creative process, but really it's what keeps all of our music from sounding the same or feeling like we've read the same book over and over again. So, let's do our part in upholding the copyright laws.